Britain has undergone a huge change in the last few years. Since 9/11, the state has developed a very different view of its citizens. New surveillance technologies are penetrating every aspect of our lives, and we don't even know it. Across the country, millions of cameras are watching us. The police will soon be able to record every journey we make.
Your vehicle has insurance.
Is that address?
Yes, yes.
And soon the state will want all our fingerprints and iris scans.
Please look into the mirror.
The Information Commissioner recently released a report on the surveillance society of today, but there is much more to come in the future.
Basically, it's a first and only microchip to implant in humans.
Just like my barcode.
Exactly.
The government says we need all this new technology to fight 21st century crime and terrorism. But far from making life safer, it could actually help those we fear most.
Here's a new passport. That's the actual chip that will have your data stored on it.
Yeah.
Full name, date of birth,
Yes.
nationality, and so on. I've written some software that will actually try and read it.
It's unbelievable.
The state now has powers to probe and pry into our lives that the dictatorships of the past couldn't have dreamt of. A profound change is taking place, and we should all be worried that we are sleepwalking into a society where 24-hour surveillance of everyone is the norm.
I recently accepted an offer to engage in an email correspondence about surveillance and civil liberties with Tony Blair, which was published in the Observer newspaper. The Prime Minister dismissed concerns about civil liberties, arguing the increased dangers posed by crime and terrorism justified the government's approach. He wrote, "We are trying to fight 21st century crime by 19th century means. It hasn't worked. It won't work. The terrorism is different. The street crime is different." In this program, I want to find out more about the actual technology of surveillance. What is already in use, how it is being used, and what is planned for the future. And most importantly, what the consequences are for us, the citizens of this democracy. And this is where it starts.
This is one of 4 million CCTV cameras in Britain. That's more than anywhere else in Europe. In the last 15 years, Britain has become the CCTV capital of the world.
There's no doubt that cameras can deal with some crime effectively. For instance, they significantly reduce crime in car parks, which is one of the reasons the current government spent £170 million on CCTV when it came to power. Today, they are everywhere. On the street, in shops, in restaurants and bars, even on buses and taxis. And the footage is normally held for 30 days.
I just did a little experiment. I walked from this concourse down through the station, down to the gents' loo, and counted 31 cameras.
Professor Clive Norris estimates that people in London are filmed an average of 300 times a day.
What we've moved away from is this idea, in a sense, that you should only target those that you have reasonable suspicion of. And we've moved to a point where we're saying everybody is suspicious and we have a right to target everybody.
It's a fundamental change in our society when everyone becomes a suspect, doesn't it?
I think this is the major drift in the last 15 years. When we talk about the move to the risk society, what it actually means is we are all a risk, therefore we must all be monitored.
Not just monitored, but judged. London Underground has recently been testing out some remarkable new software created by a British company called Ipsotech, which will analyze CCTV footage. Using a pre-programmed profile, the software will decide if what the camera is seeing is normal or abnormal. The makers claim it will identify potential criminals by their behavior. For example, if someone is standing near a cash machine but not using it, the software will alert the CCTV operator. Perhaps it's time for us to start practicing our normal behaviour. In response to the increase in surveillance, the government has introduced laws intended to give us greater access to our personal data, including CCTV footage. Heather Brooke is a journalist specialising in data protection law and the Freedom of Information Act. She believes that in practice, these laws are failing to deliver what they promise.
It's a one-way system where they're demanding all this information from us, and yet on the other hand, they're not giving it back.
But what would, I mean, you know, I would say this to people, and I've often written this sort of thing, and people tend to say, but what can I do? This is the way life is, this is the way technology is, and there's nothing I can do, I can't protest. What can they do?
I guess the simplest thing they could do is use their right to ask for the footage.
Yeah.
And
how do they do that, actually?
What they do is they make a request, it's called a subject access request,
Yes.
and you use the Data Protection Act.
Yes.
And you ask the authority who owns the camera for the footage of you.
Yes.
We decided to put these Freedom of Information laws to the test. There are hundreds of cameras around the Houses of Parliament and Ministry of Defence. Well, it's one of the most important and sensitive areas in Britain, so the high security is to be expected.
Was it actually 4?
This is Channel 4.
Channel 4. Was
Yeah.
it a documentary or?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Then I stood outside a bank for a few minutes being watched. I can understand the reasons for them needing security as well. Just around the corner is a football association. Even they have cameras that film anyone who passes. It's difficult to imagine why they feel they need cameras anywhere but on the pitch. And what's happening to all this material? How long is it stored? How can it be used? Heather prepared letters filed under the Data Protection Act, requesting access to some of the footage. I'll soon find out whether the promise of the Data Protection Act is fulfilled in practice or not. In the last few years, software has been available to allow computers to read car number plates. This automatic number plate recognition technology is used in speed cameras and on a huge scale to enforce the congestion charge in London.
Go ahead. Number. Bravo Uniform 04 Tango Zulu Golf. Your vehicle has insurance. At that address? Yes, yes.
Now it's been developed further and has been linked to the vast police national computer database. Here in South London, it's been used to track every vehicle that passes, up to 60 cars a minute. The number plates are instantaneously checked against the national computer for theft, insurance irregularities, unpaid fines, or suspected criminal activity. Patrols a few hundred metres away are waiting to pick up the suspects. 23 police forces across England and Wales are now using this technology in high crime areas.
What's a big impact for you?
In that time, essentially for us, it's about denying criminals the use of the roads and increasing road safety. And so the kind of vehicles that we capture will be involved in crime, general crime. So we have caught people who are wanted for murder, people who are involved in serious crime, people who have got weapons and firearms within their vehicle.
But the police have far greater plans for this technology.
One of the troubling things about this new surveillance society of ours is something known as function creep. A piece of technology is brought in for one reason, but then used for far more.